time. So I'm feeling extremely hopeful, very optimistic that we're going to move forward stronger than ever, and I am in. So what you can do is utilize this wheel, start from the inside, work your way out. You can put it in the chat. You can just think it to yourself, whatever you want to do. But I just, it's after a busy day of work, I just want to know, that you're here, you're showing up for today, and you're here in body, mind, and spirit. Thank you so much, everybody. All right, take just another 20 seconds to look at that wheel. And if you are not feeling as happy as I am today, that is okay. And it's so important. You're going to, this resource is available in Thrively in one of our social emotional learning playlists. So it's so important for our young learners to know they don't always have to show up happy, right? Lots of things get in the way of that. So how can we help them articulate how they're feeling, elaborate on it, and also look at how they can improve their academic vocabulary here too, just by expressing their emotions and making it okay not to feel, like you're walking on clouds every day. All right. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for taking a moment to do that. And then the second piece is always starting with strengths, because that's our core premise in Thrively, is that every single human being comes to the teaching and learning environment with strengths already. We're not all just empty vessels waiting to be filled, not by, me here today or by Zamita, but you guys already come to this day with your strengths already, and so do your learners. There are 23 strengths that we assess in Thrively, and our students' top 5 will emerge to the surface, and those are sort of their core operating system. So I want you to look at those 23, especially as we're thinking about students with learning differences. When they come to the learning environment, so many of them are focused on that one. If you look in the center row, third one down, academic, right? If we're not academic, sometimes we don't feel successful, but we know that there are a lot of ways to be successful. And academic strength is just one, and it may not be our top. And we may be, we may use our flexibility or our creative skill or compassion or drive to achieve in academics, in social and emotional learning. So important. When you have access to Thrively, this is one of the first things you'll do, is you'll ask students to take this 35-minute assessment to find out how awesome they are. And I strongly encourage you to do it too. And what that looks like when you take, we'll get there in just a second. What that supports is as a positive learning identity. So important, right? We've all learned about growth mindset now. This is, decades long work, but we want to be learning selves. So how do we help students, especially students with learning differences, because that's why we're in the room today, how do we help them develop that positive learning identity? One where you can trust that process of learning, and that when things are uncomfortable, when there's some cognitive dissonance, that it's because you're learning, right? You instead of shying away from new experiences, you feel okay, right, about taking on new learning experiences, because you have strengths, you know how to leverage those strengths, and we continually, as your educators, reinforce the strengths, and we persist, right, and we learn from our mistakes. And we want to make it okay to take intellectual risks. That's a habit of mind that's critical. And then ultimately, we want to also, we want to feel that sense of agency. And we can do that through our efforts, and also by understanding, looking at other people who have been successful in particular areas and say, that's okay. How did that happen? And how can I be successful there too? So we're going to explore how students develop those positive learning identities through understanding their strengths, which we talked about. And you also have access as CTA members to Thrively Pro, which gives you access to the habits of mind assessment. So important. I'll show you that in just a moment. And then we'll see, we'll look at goal setting. So important, not just to have a goal, but to make sure that goal is attainable. And we know it's attainable when we have an action plan. So how can we support our students with IEPs to understand their strengths, learn their top habits, grow the ones that they need to grow, set some goals and create some action plans towards those goals. And we see all of that in our learners' digital portfolios, which I'll show you in just a minute. And that's a way for our students to track their progress over time. So this is what we're thinking about today. Before we begin, I just wanted to share that some of you who've signed up, you want to make sure that you get many messages from us. Just make sure you've added info@thrively.com to your contacts. And if you need support, you can go to support@thrively. I'll also show you where to get that on the platform. Today, if you would like to tweet, we are working with educators all over the country, and California tends to be a bellwether. You guys really set the tone for a lot of the country. They've got their eyes on you. So if you want to tweet out, go ahead, and we're talking about social emotional learning, strengths-based education today, ed tech. We'll be looking at some projects as well in the platform. And now I want to make sure everyone knows how to log in. You can go, if those of you who don't have an account, you can just go to thrively.com and go to join. Those of you who do, you can log in and you can have that tab open just so you can play around with your own account and see how to do some of the things we're going to talk about today. So either you go to thrively.com, go to join if you haven't joined already, and go to login if you have joined. And you can have Thrively link directly to your Google or Microsoft account as well. All right, so you may have two tabs open today, I'm not sure, but it would be nice for you guys to play around with it a bit. So today we're going to discover how Thrively can help you lay that foundation for a strengths-based IEP. For those of us who are teachers of students with learning differences, this is really going to help you. You may be doing this already. For those of you who aren't and are our general education population, your role in this is hugely, hugely important to understand those students' strengths and to keep encouraging them to utilize those as they're setting goals and growing in our various classrooms. We're also going to look at support for students to be goal-driven, right? Future-oriented learners. I'll show you where that exists in Thrively. And we'll also help create that student-driven transition plan. And Zanita is going to talk about all of this today in a bit. First, I'm going to walk you through the platform a little bit, get us grounded in what Thrively can do. And then we'll talk to Zanita, a fellow CTA member, about how she utilizes the platform with her students to achieve these kinds of outcomes. All right, so we're Thrively. You guys, I think you know us. We're your partners in this. And there are 5 core propositions. One is that when we know our students, then they know that they're respected and valued. When we help them discover their passion and purpose, they start to get closer to getting excited about a future of their choice. When we help them develop the necessary skills, they know and they have that confidence that they can be problem solvers and creative thinkers. We like to engage students in authentic learning so that they're ready for that next level of education, whatever that is. And then ultimately, we want to work together to empower our learners so they're ready for life. They're fully agentive. So thank you in joining with us with Thrively in this pursuit. And as I shared before, we always start with strengths. So I want to show you this feature if you haven't seen it before. I want to show you what this looks like from the student side. So this is Andrew. He is our student with an IEP. This is his dashboard. You can see it's very clear in the platform. Thrively was designed for young people to use in their homes without the benefit of professional educators. So with you, they're able to really take advantage of all of the resources in the platform. But we're going to go to Andrew's digital portfolio because this is really where we're going to place our focus today. So Andrew has just taken the strengths assessment. And now we know that here are his top 5 strengths that he brings to the classroom environment. He's focused, he's analytical, he's a creative thinker, he's academic, and he has memory, and good memory. And sometimes we don't always think of our students, some of our struggling students, as being academic, and sometimes that is certainly not the case. They are. And so how do they utilize those strengths to solve some of the challenges that they're facing in their classes? I had also mentioned to you briefly about the habits of mind. When you have Thrively Pro, your students have access to the habits of mind assessment, and so do you. But look at all of these. So when we're trying to really support students to have that positive learning identity, what that means is utilizing their strengths, but also understanding their habits of mind. So for Andrew, he's creative. He thinks interdependently, so he works really well with other people. Some areas where Andrew could utilize some support is using his senses. Maybe he's over reliant upon a particular sense. So how do we help him use all of his senses to understand the world better? And you can see on the right that he's also risk averse. And we are talking today about mistakes, making mistakes, because we know that's when the synapses start snapping. So how do we help him there? And can we set a goal, work with Andrew to set a goal for his IEP around taking a responsible risk? There are other assessments in the platform as well, but I want to come back to what it looks like for you as teachers. So when I am an educator, this is my dashboard, and I go to Insights and I can see all of my students, right? All of my students with IEPs.
Jane, can you, is it possible, I guess someone had mentioned that it's really difficult to see. Is there a present button or something that you can push so they can see it in a different mode? I guess they're saying it's very small. Um,
Hmm. Is that true for everybody? I have it on full screen, so I don't know.
hmm.
Is this true for the whole group? Thank you for letting me know.
Okay, I just, before we went any further, I wanted to make sure we caught if there is something that we can do. Um,
Let me see. Let me stop sharing
no,
and
not anymore. It's fine now. Okay, there you go. All
oh,
right.
okay. Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Please.
Mhm. Yes.
The worst part is to go through a whole presentation when there's something wrong that I could fix. Thank you,
Yeah,
Anita.
exactly.
Okay, I appreciate it so much. So just note, you can see all of these data as soon as your students have taken the strengths assessment, shared their interests, their aspirations, here are their intelligences and habits. I can pop in here and I can see in any of these who those students are who had flexibility as a top strength. And there they are. And who are those folks
That's right.
who are
Perfect.
verbal, right? Okay, are we good?
Hmm.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So just know when you go to your platform, when you log into Thrively, this is your teacher toolbar where you'll find all this stuff. All right. So let's come back into the presentation and let me present that. So we're talking today about strengths, and I entitled this particular slide the mistake room. There is an art gallery in Los Angeles downtown called the Mistake Room, and when I found out about it, I loved that name, and I thought this is what all of our classrooms should be called. This is where we go to make mistakes. So mistakes, right, support a growth mindset, as you are all aware. But let's look at this quick little video from Edutopia, just so to see how we can create that mistake-friendly classroom.
All too often, students see mistakes as a source of embarrassment, stress, or even humiliation. But according to a 2018 study, brain scans show that making mistakes sets off productive brain activity. And according to the psychologist Carol Dweck, every time a student makes a mistake, they grow a synapse. So, if mistakes and learning go hand in hand, how do you make sure your classroom is mistake-friendly? When students with math anxiety confront numbers, the same fear center that lights up when people see snakes or spiders is activated. To overcome fear in our classrooms, we must identify and confront self-destructive thinking, replacing the thought, "I'm stupid," with the thought, "I'm learning." But don't respond to the fear of failure by making things easier. In a 2008 study, students who were given challenging, open-ended math questions outperformed their peers on final exams. Challenging questions forced students to explore, grapple with, and discard the wrong solutions before arriving at the correct ones, deepening their grasp of the topic. When students work on things they care deeply about, they are more likely to tolerate the unavoidable mistakes. Use surveys and get-to-know-you activities so that you can incorporate student interests into your classroom. In your classroom, explicitly label some activities as rough draft thinking. That gives students the permission to ask questions, make mistakes, and then revise without worrying about being right or wrong. Highlight the fact that it's beneficial to talk through ideas that aren't fully formed. To create a classroom culture that is truly open to mistakes, you need to model them in front of your students. The expectation that all student work needs to be graded remains one of the largest obstacles to innovation and productivity in classrooms. Grade only 25% of assignments. You'll free up hours of your own time and also promote a low-stress classroom environment in which students are encouraged to take risks and produce a greater volume of high-quality work.
Well, thank you, Edutopia, for that. I want to share, go back to this for just a moment, back to the strengths interest breakdown. So when your students log into Thrively for the first time, they're asked to share their interests and their aspirations. We've already talked about strengths. So now you saw in the Edutopia video, when students are involved in something that they care about, they're much more risk tolerant. So important. And we saw that in Andrew. That was an area of growth for him. So now let's look and see, okay, so what are our students interested in? So I can see here in, say, in the creative arts, who those folks are who are interested in photography, right? And let's look, and I'll bet we find, let's see, coming back here, back to interest, back to creative arts and photography, because I want to see Andrew there. There he is with his camera. So how do we utilize our students' interest, right, to get them to really dig deep, go deeper, make more mistakes, be excited about learning, and move from that fixed mindset to a learning mindset. So the more we know about our students, the more we're able to tap into those interests. So these are all here in Thrively. Right here, I can select any class and find any student and see what their interests are. Who are those folks who are interested in robotics? Well, how many mistakes do we have to make to create a robot to do something we want it to do? Probably quite a few. Or if we're making, creating a painting, or we're doing a computer animation, whatever that is, how do we make sure that we've given our students lots of opportunities to make a ton of mistakes and get comfortable with that feeling? All right, so let's come back here into our slide presentation. We're going to talk for just a moment about goals, and I'm going to talk to you about where you've set those goals in Thrively and why that's so important in a learner-centered learning, I should say, a learning-centered environment. So let's take a look here. We're going to hear from our colleague Patrick about goal setting, but before we do, not this one. Before we do, if you guys could think for a minute about that Edutopia video and imagine now, instead of the goal being to get a particular grade in a class, a goal is something around a habit of mind. So creating those conditions for trust to flourish, to deepen and strengthen those relational ties among students and between students and teachers. Now, if we go into just imagine one of those habits, and in this case, we're thinking about Andrew, and we're thinking about Andrew taking responsible risks, taking intellectual risks. We can utilize Thrively to help him set that goal and to create an action plan to achieve it. So a goal doesn't have to be around, getting an A in a class. It's no, what are the conditions for becoming that student with a positive learning identity? So here's the goal feature in Thrively. So let's listen to Patrick for just a minute, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like in the platform. And then we're going to talk to Zanita in just a minute about all the things she does in her classrooms for her students with Thrively. All right, here we go.
Hey there, it's Patrick. Thank you for joining us for a brief tour of Thrively's goal setting feature. Goals provide students a path toward achievement in academics and success in both learning and in life. Students who are goal-oriented become future-oriented as well. which helps them find meaning in what they're learning in your class. With Thrively, you can easily create long-term goals that align with your student's portrait of a graduate, specific school goals, or classroom goals. Or you can create short-term goals that align to content mastery or classroom management expectations. Let's get started creating a goal-driven classroom. You can easily create your own goals, or you can use those already in Thrively. Let's take a look at the Thrively goals first. To add a goal from the Goals library, select Browse Goals, find the goal you'd like to add, select Add to My Goals, and that's it. Let's take a closer look at a Thrively goal. When you click on a goal, you'll see an action plan and a rubric. Having a goal is great, but if you want students to achieve the goal, they'll need some guidance on how to get there. The action plan simply lists some steps that you'd like your students to take. Then, add some resources to assist your students. You can easily add a video, a PDF, or a slideshow to make your goal come alive. Next, add some criteria or a rubric so that students are clear about your expectations and have the greatest opportunity for success. Finally, add a photo or image that aligns with the goal. Students find images engaging, and the right image can help students understand the concept more fully. Then, set a due date for your goal. If you'd like to create your own goal, go to your teacher toolbar under your avatar and select the goal icon. Select Create Goal, name your goal, create an action plan, upload a rubric, and set your due date. These are the Thrively goals that Gina's created for her students. You'll notice goals aligned with 21st century competencies, such as collaboration, flexible thinking, and problem solving, as well as goals that align with social and emotional learning, such as empathy, gratitude, and grit. Simply click on the goal and assign it directly to your students or attach it to a playlist or unit of study in Thrively. You can easily differentiate and personalize goals for students by assigning a goal to all students or assigning different goals to different students. Your students are now on their way to becoming self-managing, goal-oriented learners who are on the path to personal and academic success.
Okay, everyone, those of you who are attending for credit, and even if you're not, I'm going to very much encourage you to do this. So your homework, credit seekers, is to go into your own dashboard, go to your own portfolio, and create a goal for yourself. So I'm going to scroll down here to where it says My Goals, and I'm going to add a goal. This will do a couple of things. One, it'll show you what that experience of goal setting is like for your learners if they're setting their own goal. It'll help you understand how to set a goal for your learners if you wish to set one for them related to their IEP or even in their general ed class. So go ahead and add a goal and make this a goal that's meaningful for you as a professional. So what is your specific goal? When are you going to accomplish it? And I would love it if that goal had something to do with the conversation today with Thrively, with utilizing one of the features, but it doesn't have to, obviously. It can be anything that you want, and you'll add some, you'll add a rubric, you'll add criteria, and you'll get that experience for what that experience is like for your learners. So go ahead and add a goal. So I do also want to share that for your learners, you can assign goals that are already in the platform, and where we want them to go, if possible, is creating goals for themselves. So remember, this is Andrew's portfolio. It looks just like yours. Andrew can come down here to My Goals. These are goals that his teacher has assigned, right? Engaging in self-compassion, so important. But we would like him to be goal-oriented too, and future-directed, future-oriented. Have Andrew create a goal. Have your student create a goal for him or herself. And what would be evidence of progress towards that goal? Develop criteria with them. Go back to their IEP and see what's included in there. How do you add those criteria to that goal? And then along the way, as students are making progress, they add highlights, which is progress towards that goal. All right, and this information is in the slide deck that is available to you because I know that this was a lot. The goal setting feature is wonderful. It's robust and it's critical for our learners to begin to build that positive learning identity because they know that learning isn't something we don't grasp something right off the bat, or otherwise we haven't learned it. We already knew it. What we do is we make progress over time. So please, utilize that goal setting feature for students to understand that learning occurs. It occurs over time, and we're going to track our growth through what we at Thrively call highlights towards progress. And while we're here, you notice that in the Edutopia video, they talked about not grading everything. Thank goodness, right? How wonderful. We don't need to grade everything, but Thrively will help you track that and the student track their learning journey. So we call these scores passion points, not grades, right? So how passionate are they about learning? Well, how many highlights towards goals did they have? How many journal responses, right? How many lessons did they complete? And this is a way for them to track their journey, not their grade. All right, so let's come back. I'm going to take us back into our presentation for just a moment and just show you what you guys will have access to. And then we're going to start a conversation with Zanita, which I'm super, super excited about. So you'll see what a Thrively goal is. I'm going to introduce Zanita in a second, but you will have this slide deck to show you what's in a goal, how to add a goal, how to assign it. So you'll get this deck, and we'll make this deck available to you so you don't have to capture every single thing at this moment. So right now in this next section, I'm so, so excited to introduce your fellow CTA member, Zanita Valencia. Zanita has been working on a pilot for the Department of Transition Services to work with her transition students in Los Angeles Unified. She's an incredible advocate for students with learning differences. Of course, she's a special education teacher, as you've figured out by now, a transitions teacher, and a thought leader for our region in Los Angeles to really think about how to make this experience learner-centric, and of course, a CTA member. So I welcome my colleague and friend, Anita, and we're going to engage in a conversation, and she'll share some resources with you as well. All right. Hello, Zanita.
Hello, Jane.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Sure.
I wanted to just first ask you, what attracted you to Thrively at the beginning? How did you find out about it? And what inspired you to dig deeper?
Well, I found out about it. I was a RSP teacher for about 6 years. And one of my coworkers brought the platform to our group. Of course, I was very busy. But I started using it, but what really caught my eye and I realized the importance of it was when students signed up, they were automatically taking the assessment to find out their 5 top strengths. And I realized students felt pretty proud that they could say that something positive about themselves, because often they're being disciplined or they're in trouble or they didn't finish their homework or there's something wrong. But this was saying something positive and something great about them. And they recognized that the strengths that were listed for them were pretty accurate. So I was like, oh, this is something that's making them feel positive and pushing them in the right direction and getting their attention. So then I started using this for my IEPs during the ITP section, where we talk about their future career goals and how they're going to obtain them. And, often during the IEP, there's a lot of things we're getting accommodations because maybe Johnny is not doing so well in mathematics. He needs more support. And there's always, he's not good enough to do something, or he needs more support in order to reach a certain academic grade in a class. But at this point with the Thrively, it was relaxed and we just got to talk really good things about the student, and it made the parents smile and it made the student smile, and it was just a really positive moment in the IEP.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I wonder about just creating how far away are we from creating a strengths-based IEP in your profession? Where are we and where do we need to go?
Well, from what I've been told by a transition teacher, which I am currently, in the past, is that IEPs at one time was centered around the child's future and what they wanted to do, and finding out those strengths and their goals and building their accommodations and their classes and everything based on that. So now I think we are all rooting for our kids to do the best we can, but sometimes I think we may be a little bit negative about what they can do sometimes and forget their strengths. So it's just really good. This is a really good platform to just remind you and talk through how their strengths are, because it's so easy to identify people's mistakes. And unfortunately, we all need to work more from a growth mindset.
Definitely. I think that's true for all of us. I mean, we're all part of this same, educational culture. And what we often focus on are those deficits, right? What are we missing? What do we not have, right? Instead of what we do have.
Exactly. And even for myself, sometimes we're all trying to achieve something. We're like, oh, I wasn't good enough. Oh, I didn't do that. Oh, we're setting really high goals. But, I actually took the strengths. I only took one assessment so far. So, well, of course, I have to take the strengths based just to get into the program. Oh, no, no, no. As a teacher, you don't, but I decided to take it. And it was really nice. So I can fall back on sometimes when I talk to the students, I'm like, let's find out your top 5 strengths. Mine is worldly. And so it does give you a nice, even ourselves as adults, we need that extra positiveness too.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm thinking about the your sharing your own portfolio and your strengths with students, because I wonder, and is it your experience that students have the misconception that all teachers must be academic, that must be their top strength?
Yes. And I think just sharing something about yourself and one of your strengths, I think that I try to make them feel like I'm a part of what you're about to experience, learning about what your strengths are. We all want to know what they are, and we all have something special. So I try to make myself included in that and not seem like they're superior. I'm your teacher, do this. So I just try to connect with them.
Yeah, I think, in that Edutopia video, right, where they're saying, we need to model making mistakes. I think we also, right, need to model as educators that there are a lot of ways that we solve problems. Flexibility is a critical skill, especially for now. But how are we utilizing as educators our strengths to solve challenges? And do we have challenges, right? And if we are a learner and we're building and we have a positive learning identity, then we're always learning, and they can see that there's not point A to point Z and then we're going to know everything. Even as adults, we don't know, and certainly don't know everything, but how do
Right.
we grapple with complexity, right, and challenge? So we
Oh,
need, yeah,
one
please.
thing I did want to mention,
Yeah.
as far as working from the positive, there was a really great example towards the end of last year, when my final year as a resource teacher. There's a student who was often absent from many of the classes, and people were having a hard time connecting with him. And he was just known as the kid who, his dad drops him off and he sneaks out of school, and he was doing really bad in classes. So I had him complete the Thrively assessment, and a lot of the students like navigating through the profiles, and he just started creating a goal. I didn't ask him to do it. He just said he has a goal to be a musician, and so he started putting these highlights in there while I was waiting. I found out after he put these highlights, and he had performed in marching band for the Rose Bowl 3 times. He played 6 instruments, and it was like conversation that we didn't fully have. So I was able to talk to him from his strength of, oh wow, you're a musician. You've performed, you've done all of these things. And it was a different way of talking to him, instead of thinking, oh, he's the child who has difficulty coming to school. And, having that connection with him, it made me recognize that I was first period and he was always in my class. So it helped build a different kind of conversation, and it was like for him, I could see him. I recognized him as a individual.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I have to tell everybody, it kind of gave me goosebumps, because, often we think, oh, well, we have to help them set a goal. Well, he gravitated immediately to that because he wanted to kind of raise his voice and say, I do have a goal. I have my own goal, and this is what it is. So that whole idea of maybe, utilizing the goal setting feature for the IEP, but really making sure that students can set their own. What is it that we don't know about you? What is a personal goal that you have? And let's put that there. How exciting. Like, I had never heard a story like this before. I've never heard a story like this before, where a student is in the portfolio and going, oh, I can make my own goal, because that's a person who wants to raise his voice and be seen
Right.
and heard.
Yeah, I didn't even recognize that section until he completed it because I just started using
Right.
it. Yes.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing that. I hope everybody in here, today I said, hey, be sure you go set a goal for yourselves. And if you're receiving the credit for this series of webinars, that's a homework assignment. But even if you're not receiving the credit, go in there and see what Zanita's talking about. So her student was in that portfolio. I'm just going to share my screen, Zanita, again, and show everybody what you're saying. I know I've shared it before, but I want to show it as out of here.
And I just want to make sure I say one other thing,
Yeah, please.
as far as the strengths. When students take that assessment and they can vocalize their particular strengths,
Mhm.
I had some students go in on their own, maybe about 8 students out of 60. They went in without me asking them to complete journals. They completed from 8 to 11 journals on their own, and they were all talking about their strengths. And of course, if it was teacher directed, we probably could get more depth from them, but they were just interested in evaluating their own strengths based on Thrively. And so I had all these journal entries, and I was like, wow, I didn't even ask them to do it. And they started having conversations. And so I just interacted later just to say thank you for sharing your the information and what you thought about your strengths. I had to respond because they were just working in there.
Thank you so much for saying that. And I think that's really interesting that Thrively is a very kind of low affect, super engaging, low anxiety way to start, to discover your strengths and begin to apply them. So what Zanita is talking about, right, is the strengths assessment. So they started, her students started going into the on their homepage, going into the lessons and
Yes.
completing lessons just on their own because
Yeah,
they
that
found it
first lesson
engaging.
on your 5 strengths, talking about your 5 strengths,
Ah,
they started investigating that more, and they were more interested in them, having interest in themselves and what these goals had to say about them.
nice. So when students engage with the content in Thrively, they can we want to encourage reflection and develop reflective learners. So they can do that in text, in audio, or in video and post those. And Zanita gets those in her dashboard so she can see what her students are doing. And I wanted to share before I lose that thread about the student that musician. So imagine, here's this kid, right? It's like, oh, here are my strengths. And he's scrolling down through the platform and he goes, oh, goals. And he just goes right in here to set a goal on his own, right? My goal is to become a professional musician. All right. And he says when he's going to do that, he's going to do it by March, and it's going to happen on the 2nd, and it's going to happen in 2025. He takes a picture, he saves it. And here he is. I want to be a professional musician. What's my action plan? How am I going to get there? I'm going to add an action plan. The first thing is I've done 3 Rose Bowls and I'm going to do 6 more. And right, so he can add all of those. Here's a video maybe of a favorite musician, somebody who's been a huge influence, something exciting for him. And then he saves that. And as he's making progress, he adds that highlight. Here I am getting ready for my 4th Rose Bowl. Amazing that he did that and we didn't even know about it. What a
Right.
great way to inspire him, right? And so all of those highlights end up here as highlights right here where he can share like all of the amazing stuff that he's doing.
Right. And the next thing after that, I mean, of course, that drew me in to get the students engaged in their own lives.
Mhm.
And so now as a transition teacher, and now that I'm still at the beginning stages of, because there's so much there, but now as collaborating with other professionals. So
Right.
there are the English teachers, the math teachers, the outside resources. We have the Department of Rehabilitation we work with, and we have consent to share information between LAUSD and the Department of Rehabilitation. So I can often share some of the results and information with them, because we're all giving, sometimes the students are getting the same assessments from different um, teachers and counselors. If we all work together and collaborate, it's a great program to collaborate and get information on the student. If the math teacher is dealing with a student who has math and anxiety and he's frustrated, maybe he can find out, oh, you want to be an engineer. Well, guess what? Math may be hard for you right now, but we have to get you to a point so we can get you to that career goal of becoming an engineer. So if you talk more like that, then you failed the test again, or you got a D, could we talk more from what they want to accomplish. It can be more encouraging, and maybe the math anxiety can be reduced a little bit because they're focusing more on what they want to achieve.
Well, when I said, at the outset that you are an advocate for young people, it's absolutely true. And this is just evidence of that, Zanita. And I think, like, when we say, oh, you need a student, you need to pass this class because you need to pass this class, or you need to understand this concept because this is a standard. What you're saying is, hey, this is an aspiration that you hold for yourself. You want to be an engineer, and how exciting, you're going to be an engineer. Now you're struggling with math or a concept in math right now, right? But this is, and learning that cognitive conflict can be difficult, but that's because you're learning. So now we're reaching out to them based on their aspirations, and that is more engaging and exciting. And we saw that in the Edutopia video too.
Right.
Right. And so Thrively helps you understand that from day one. Now, from day one, we know what a child's aspirations are, and now we can direct everything towards that. And you're also talking about then aligning all of those resources so that support is it's coherent, right? There's coherent support across various agencies, and you can utilize the Thrively digital portfolio and platform with all the proper consents. You can utilize that to create that coherence across the organizations. Okay, that's really, did you, is there something, did you want to share any of your resources with us right now, or we can continue just to engage in the conversation?
Well, I did have something I wanted to share,
Great.
but I'll just briefly share. I
Sure.
really like to talk about the students' network and all the people that are influencing the student. So we have the SPED teacher, the DOR teacher, which is like a transition service. And there's all these people, parents, peers, um, and many other professionals. And so, you know, all the parents also can be involved in this platform. Um, so this is just a way that the student can, you know, they can express themselves, and then everybody can be on the same page, like you say, from day one. Because, you know, if they are in seventh grade, they're signing in with their school's identification, their LAUS, well, in our case, LAUSD username and password. So it stays with them until they graduate. So instead of like the first week of school, we want to figure out who everyone is. Of course, you're going to have those type of things to get everybody comfortable, but you can start the year knowing, like you say, their aspirations, their interest, and knowing how to plan for learning when you have the real life activities, something that's based on what they're actually interested in. So, I mean, I like this, and you've already shown some of the other things. Like I can just pull up my students' top interest aspirations on one page. And then I also had a student here, he completed all the assessments. He wanted to know a lot about himself. And he also posted a goal that he wanted to figure out the best college for his career choice. So I just really do like the program, and I'm just trying to get more of my colleagues to use it, because I think the more we use it, the more we can collaborate and not work hard, but work efficiently, and be in a platform that the students, are engaged in, because they love it. To them, it's like having a Facebook because they can add their images and you kind of connect to what they like. Um, and yeah, and I just had a student finally yesterday use instead of typing their entry, she used the audio. So that was really cool too.
Wonderful. And I mean, we talk about differentiating instruction, right? And that's all on us as the educator, right? Well, look at your students differentiating for themselves, right? I'm going to decide where I go. I want to take all the assessments. I want to create goals for myself. I'm going to go explore content on my own. And, I think that's really there's so many surprising discoveries
And
about your
even,
students.
I hate to disturb you, but
No.
even I had students on the alternative curriculum
Mhm.
that often, people they have a particular program called Unique. So they don't always use a lot of other programs. Some teachers don't. So I had a student who, oh my God, I think he's put in like 12 journal entries. He's put one in almost every day, and he talks about a particular strength, or he has a question that reflects about sharing. And they share a lot of information. And so he's just really showing that he may be in the alternate curriculum, um, but he's able to reflect and write sentences and paragraphs and talk about his experience. And this platform he obviously likes because he's always in it.
I love that. And that's, core premise of Thrively, like, I belong here, right? I
Yes.
know I'm valued. I belong and I'm valued. So often it can be easy to marginalize students who aren't,
Yes.
at the front of the room, even whether they have an IEP or not, right? That we're talking about students with IEPs, right? But to say, oh, you're different. Well, you're not. We all have strengths. We all have interests. We all have aspirations. And now we have a place where we can go with very low anxiety to go let those, rise to the surface and really claim them and own those strengths and interests. So thank you for sharing that. It's
No
exciting.
problem.
Well, I really appreciate it. But I do want to share, I'm sorry, was there anything else, Anita, on that
No,
you
thank
wanted
you
to
for
share about?
having me.
Oh,
And
no,
I guess
stick
have a
around.
good day.
We might, no, stick around. We might have some questions for
Can't go
you.
anywhere. Yeah, we have a couple of questions. One of them, she is an RSB teacher,
Oh,
and she wanted to find out. She's put in a self-contained situation, and she wants to know about how much time does Thrively take out of the day besides curriculum? Because just to kind of be able to balance, what does that kind of look like? That when if you've actually used it, so how does that actually look? I mean, in order to be able to continue to do your keep up with the standards, do everything that you need to do. How have you been able to kind of integrate that into your daily curriculum?
yes. Well, when I was RSP and in the classroom every day, my life as a transition teacher is slightly different. But as a warm up, because they have those journal prompts, and then just making sure students know they can type, and sometimes maybe they just want to create a video. Um, of course, creating the assessments was no problem. However, I just do want to highlight um, one of the students who had quite a bit of problem. I mean, she had quite some challenges with reading. If they really have challenges with reading, you might want to review the profile questions with them, because she was the one student whose profile didn't quite match. And I realized that she needed more help with reading. But you can use it as you need. Like I said, you can use it as quick warm-ups. They just sign into Thrively. You can have the prompt ready for them. They write a few sentences, check in where they are at. You can memorialize that day and that event, how they're feeling, and they can always refer back to it in the future. And then you can also do as much as completing an assessment, having a project that they complete over a few days. They just do a little bit at a time. And then after a period of 2 to 5 days, however long the project is, you can review that. And it's all in that same platform that you can share with other teachers. Being RSP, you may want to share maybe with their math teacher or their English teacher may help. It would be great if the entire school uses it, because then there may be a particular aspect that they can also help with. I also used it in just really quickly, in a homeroom for a gen ed class. I had one of my 2 of my students were in that class. So I just did it with everyone. And the senior, he was a senior English teacher. He loved it because they were working on purpose statements for colleges. So it helped give them vocabulary and help them to vocalize their actual strengths and how to add that into their essays. And also, I think it's great for, I'm a transition teacher, and I'm helping them get work. So it helps with interviews so that they can speak on their own behalf of what their strengths are and their capabilities are. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Zanita. And we have another question for you, ladies, is confidentiality is a legal issue. And the information that, is placed into Thrively, is that something that are not identifying names, or how do you kind of work around that?
Well, currently right now, I work within this particular school. So everyone who has access to it, it's controlled. But that is a great issue. So just like if I were to go into Welligent or a secure a program, the people who are able to access that program are the same people that can access the Thrively profiles that I'm looking at. And but if I were to contact an outside agency and I were to connect them with a particular group, I would create a separate group, and I would add that student to that particular group so that the outside agency that I have consent for can review. So I'm not at the point where I'm using it for an entire, well, no, I did use it for the gen ed class, but I control what teachers are able to see the platform.
Okay. And I think the member that we have online is she's working with the juvenile hall, and she's kind of concerned with, that at this point, because Thrively has access to what, she inputs, not just the campus and the district, right? That's what she's kind of trying to clarify, that who
Yeah,
has access to the information that she's inputting
can
regarding.
you please, I'm going to make sure you have my email, just jane@thrively.com. So reach out to me separately. And, of course, we're COPA for compliant, all of that, but I know you have very specific concerns for students in those circumstances. So please reach out to me and we can talk about that offline. Well, I just want to thank you, Anita, for having us join your CTA members and have these important conversations. Thank you so much. And Zanita, I cannot thank you enough for everything that you've shared with us. And I'm so excited to hear all the ways in which your students are engaging with the platform. You're such an incredible leader. And as a person who really understands individualizing instruction and responding to individual student needs, I think you're going to show the rest of us, right, how important that is and how easy it is when you utilize a platform like Thrively to help you do that. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
Really wonderful.
And thank all of our members for being here today. We appreciate it. If you have any other further questions, Jane, you can reach out to Jane. Jane, and that's at thrively.com. Thank you very much, ladies.
All right. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your week, everyone.
Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.